Sawati. Today, we will talk about scientific variables. Maybe most of you heard this from your science instructors. They always remind you to keep in mind these variables. Yes, these variables are important in every science experiments. With that being said, grab your papers and pen, and we shall begin. Without further ado, let's dive in. Scientific variables are any factor, trait, or condition that can exist in differing amounts or types. In layman's term, variables are any object or treatment used in your experiment. There are three kinds of variables. 1. Independent variable. 2. Dependent variable, and 3. Controlled variable. Before we will start to unpack each variable, I would like to remind you that these variables shouldn't be interchanged or mixed. Listen carefully and take note of their differences. You don't want your experiment to be ruined just because you missed a single thing. Make sure you'll watch this video until the end because I will give an example of its application. Independent variable is the only variable in the experiment that is changed or manipulated. Dependent variable, on the other hand, means variable that is measured or observed. It is also affected during the experiment, and the reason why it's called dependent is because it depends on the independent variable. Controlled variable, these are the variables that are constant or remains the same throughout the process. Remember these three variables: independent, changed or manipulated; dependent variable, measured or observed; controlled, constant or remains the same. I will show you an experimental setup. While doing this, get a piece of paper and please take note which is independent, dependent and controlled variables. At the end of the experiment, I will reveal the correct answers and we'll see if you get it correctly. Are you ready? For this experiment, I want to see which type of water will grow more mung beans in a full 24 hours. I have two set of cups. I labeled them A and B respectively. For cup A, I put tap water, and for cup B, I put coconut water. Both cups have the same amount of water with 250 ml each. After setting the two cups, I placed them at the same location. I then put 10 mung beans on each cup. I leave it overnight and waited for 24 hours. After 24 hours, I checked the setups and counted how many beans sprouted. Then I write the results on a table. I am not satisfied with the results. So, I prepared another two setups. This will be my trial 2 and trial 3 respectively. I repeat the same process I did from trial 1. After 24 hours of waiting, I checked the results and put it on my table. And I am done with the experiment. Now, pause the video for a while and write which of these variables are classified as independent, dependent, or controlled. You can write your answers in the comment below, and compare later if you get it correctly. Are you done? Let's check your answers. Let's start with independent variable. Again, the definition of independent variable, these are the manipulated or changed variables. Which variable in the example is changed or manipulated? If you answered type of water, you're correct. Why, type of water, is the correct answer. Remember that in this experiment, we changed or manipulated the type of water in each setup to see if there are differences between them. Independent variable is the variable that is different from set A to set B. Or this is the only thing that is changed among the variables in your setup. Let's move on to dependent variable. Dependent variable, it is measured and observed in the experiment. Which variable in the example is measured or observed? If your answer is number of beans, you're wrong. The correct answer is number of sprouted beans. Why number of beans is wrong? We counted them, right? So it's considered as dependent. Actually no. It should be number of sprouted beans, because dependent variables are dependent to the independent variables. And we are measuring the effect of independent variables to our dependent variables. In this case, we are looking forward for the effects of type of water to the beans. And the number of sprouted beans tells us that if it affects or not. How about number of beans? Which variable is it? It belongs to the last variable, controlled variable. Controlled variable are variables that are constant and remains the same throughout the experiment. Now, number of beans is only part of controlled variables. Which variables are considered controlled? The following are the controlled variables in this experiment. 1. Number of beans. Remember we added 10 beans each cup, and that didn't change throughout 3 trials. 2. Amount of liquid. We added 250 ml each cup. 3. The container or the cup. The type of beans used, the location where the experiment took place, the time duration. These are also examples of controlled variables. How important is controlled variables? It is very important because it helps you see the correct result of your experiment. Imagine it you added 10 beans for cup A and 6 beans for cup B. Then you compared how many beans will sprout. Of course, the chances of getting more sprouted beans will be greater for cup A because it has 10 beans compared to 6 of the other cup. Or if you use different containers for set A and set B. Imagine if the set A has bigger container and the other has smaller, it will really affect the result of your experiment. If you've done this correctly, you are also doing your experiment correctly. The chances of getting appropriate results is also high. This is how you do fair test, where you change or manipulate one variable. These are the kinds of scientific variables. How many items did you get correctly? Write it down on the comments below. I hope you learn a lot in this video. If you find this video interesting, give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe for more science content. Adios.